All right, Sweeple, to officially open this morning's keynote, please give a warm welcome to your FY22 President, Rachel Morford.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to our second day of WE21. Let's give it up to DJ Megan for some great tunes. Woo! I hope all of the Sweeple attending, whether live or virtually, had a great experience and benefited from yesterday's sessions. I hear the inspirational insight sessions were a hit, and for those of you who attended the career fair, I hope all of your interviews went well. If you are attending virtually and are interested in career opportunities, don't worry. We have a virtual career fair scheduled on Tuesday, October 22nd. Also, I was just told that there's a special presentation that will happen this morning immediately after our keynote question and answer session. I know that there are other sessions after that session, that Q&A session, but please stay in your seats this morning because you won't want to miss this announcement. As you know, awards and recognition are a big part of SWE's culture. We have an impressive group of recipients this year, including a couple of awards that we don't always give out, like our Entrepreneur Award and our Resnick Challenger Medal. Woo, yes. Please take time to go to the virtual awards hall to view all of this year's award recipients and send a note or two of congratulations to each of them. Thank you for doing that in advance. Speaking of recognition, I also want to take some time to recognize our sponsor partners for this morning's keynote. Their continued support of SWE and its mission are invaluable. To acknowledge their support, I will invite each of this morning's 4 sponsors to the stage, if they're here, to say a few words. With that, let's take a look at the video to hear from our first sponsor, Boeing.
Hello, my name's Leanne Corrett. I'm President and CEO of Boeing Defense, Space and Security. I wish we could all be together in person today, but I wanted to send my heartfelt wishes for this year's conference where you will aspire to inspire. Whether you're attending virtually or in person, I hope that each of you leave this conference with new friends and connections. And equally important, a broader support team to help you on your career journey. Finding your team of mentors, cheerleaders, and advocates is what events like this and organizations like SWE are all about. Personally, I know I would not be where I am today without my tremendous support network. It's because of them that I have actually achieved more than I ever thought possible. People like my 9th grade algebra teacher, Miss Mary Cunningham. One day, she wrote my name on a blackboard alongside those who did well on a test. She taught me that I could do the hard things. She aspired to inspire students like me, and I could tell you I wouldn't be where I am today without her. Also, people like my countless mentors at Boeing, people like Jean Cunningham, who pushed me to take the tough assignments head on and learn from my successes and, more importantly, my failures. I wouldn't be where I am today without each of those folks. As women leaders, it's our responsibility to aspire to inspire those around us and champion that next generation. It's up to us to empower, encourage, and support one another, to bring up other women with us as we rise. Together, we can create inclusive workplaces around the globe where all teammates thrive and where all women have a seat at the table. I'm inspired to be here alongside each of you, and I know that together we can and we will make a difference. Thank you for having these important conversations. And with that, let's roll a short video from all of us at Boeing.
I will will be the first girl to vacation on another planet.
I will expand mankind's knowledge of the universe.
I am responsible for the technologies that fly airplanes around the world.
I will create advancements in propulsion technology.
I will inspire the next generation of women to achieve their dreams.
I will innovate the next generation.
I'm helping bring to life the airplanes of the future.
I've designed.
I will change the world.
Thank you, Boeing. And now please welcome our second sponsor, Discover.
A focus on problem solving to try and fail, because the concept behind failing fast gives you an opportunity to learn quicker.
We are a combined BT, business technology, and business group.
Despite the fact that we are a very big organization, our team is very close. Like, I have conversation with my manager every time I want. One fun fact is, like, I think in my second week, I was having lunch next to the CEO. He was sitting on the next table, so I was like, oh, okay.
Typical day is a lot of meetings, a lot of what we call huddles. Each person is bringing a different sort of talent or skill set, because that's what the product needs.
They really encourage you to be curious, ask questions, be able to look at technologies. What can you do with them? What can you do differently?
Technology moves very fast, so you want to keep the pace, and that's always a constant challenge. When the pandemic kicked, we have a project already going on. Basically, it was a strategy to save money using cloud resources. So we were making sure that people were utilizing the resources in the cloud the way they were intended, and we saw the results. We saved a lot of money for the company by running these processes and identifying resources that they were not using in the cloud space.
The cool thing about Discover is that I was able to learn, engage, ask a lot of questions, figure out how best to take my skill sets and where to apply them. And it's been great.
Thank you, Discover. And now please give a warm, sweet welcome to our third sponsor, Dow.
Having the life you want and the career you want will require more than being smart and getting good grades. It will require more than doing excellent work. All of that's important, but you also need resilience. And I have no doubt that the women who won this year's Nobel Prizes in chemistry and physics faced many difficulties along the way. I'm sure their abilities were questioned just because they are women, but they were resilient, and our world is better for it. Whether you are talking about COVID-19, the economic downturn, or addressing racial injustice, or simply making it through the day, find the resilience to face these challenges head on, because the world needs you to keep going to reach your ultimate destination, which is certain to make your life and our world better. And my hope for all women in the manufacturing sector is that you are courageous. So much is at stake. Your career and even your happiness, but also a world made better by your work. The U.S. manufacturing workforce today is less than 1/3 women. Just think how much better it could be if there were more women working in the sector today. New perspectives, fresh ideas, a workforce that is not mired in the quicksand of the status quo. And I know change is not easy. That's why we need you to have courage. The courage to face resistance with resilience, the courage to stand up for what you believe in, the courage to wade in when things are tough, to advocate for yourself and for others, the courage to fail and to get back up and back in the next day. Nelson Mandela reminded us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. So ask yourself, what are you afraid of? Now imagine yourself overcoming those fears. That's when you discover the freedom to be who you want to be. Imagine your life when you move from fear to courage and from courage to triumph. You can do it. We need you to do it. We are waiting on you to do it. We are waiting for you to set the world on fire. Let nothing stand in your way.
Thank you, Dow, for your support of SWE and all women engineers. And now, please welcome this morning's fourth and final sponsor, Motorola Solutions.
Good morning. I'm Emily Allen with Motorola Solutions, and on behalf of Motorola Solutions, welcome to WE21. The theme of WE21 is Aspire to Inspire. As engineering students and professionals, you all know as well as I do that pursuing engineering and career and technology paths can be both challenging and rewarding. That's why, both as a student and a professional, I have always valued the network of women in STEM in my life who have supported, challenged, and inspired me. I was inspired by a high school math teacher, Mrs. Kite, who I approached with the wild idea of taking 2 prerequisite math courses at the same time. I had just moved from another school district that didn't have quite the advanced math curriculum. She didn't know me at all. She really didn't think I could do it, but I was determined to catch up, knowing that I wanted to pursue collegiate studies in engineering. Not only did she give me the chance, she supported me, she cheered for me, and she even helped me when the overlap obviously became difficult. I was inspired by my electrical engineering cohort at the University of Akron in Akron, Ohio, which at the time was about 30% women. And I'm proud to say that almost all of them walked across the stage with me 5 years later to collect our degrees together. I couldn't have gotten through that without them. I have been and I continue to be inspired by my colleagues here at Motorola Solutions. I started my career at Motorola Solutions right out of college as a systems engineer. Now, after 20 years in a variety of positions, I'm the vice president of our North America enterprise markets, leading both sales and engineering teams. I wouldn't be in the position that I am today without a village of leaders and fellow cohorts along the way who believed in me, who challenged me to stretch myself, becoming comfortable in the uncomfortable. It was a woman engineering manager early in my career who helped me through a couple of tough projects and impressed upon me the importance of taking on tough challenges, understanding when and why failure may occur, and how to leverage the lessons from those challenges into stronger outcomes. I'm inspired by the 300 fellow Motorola Solutions colleagues in attendance with me here today, both in person and virtual. We are honored to have 100 women participating in person and 200 virtual around the world. We've been a partner with SWE for over 10 years, and we continue to work with SWE to support volunteer and outreach programs for young women who have an interest in STEM. This year, the philanthropic arm of our company, the Motorola Solutions Foundation, awarded a grant of $75,000 to the SWE Next High School Leadership Academy. Additionally, the foundation has committed $100,000 to support scholarships for females pursuing an engineering degree in college. We are endlessly proud of this partnership and the strong connections it allows us to make. But finally, and most importantly, I'm inspired by each and every one of you in this room today. And my challenge to each of you here at WE21 is to take full advantage of this opportunity that we have together to network. You're among brilliant minds who, just like my role models, will support and challenge and inspire you. On behalf of Motorola Solutions, I hope you have a great conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you again to all of our sponsors, both for today's keynote address and to all of our sponsors year-round. SWE appreciates both your financial support and the support you provide inside your organizations to our employee members so that your employees of SWE can continue, so that your employees who are members of SWE can continue to make our mission a reality. As we turn to the keynote segment, let me remind everyone that we will host a question and answer session at the end, immediately following the conclusion of Barbara's presentation. Please use the WE21 mobile app to submit questions. As a reminder, in order to submit questions, navigate to this morning's keynote on the app, and at the bottom of the screen, touch Submit Your Questions. Enter your question on the next screen, and then touch Submit. Although we often can't get to every single question we receive through the app due to time constraints, please still submit them, as I may use your question if today's keynote agrees to do a follow-up podcast. Today's keynote is presented by Barbara Humpton, the CEO of Siemens USA. Siemens is a technology company that is driving the transformation of industry and infrastructure from smart buildings and grids to more efficient factories, to sustainable and reliable transportation. As CEO of Siemens USA, Barbara has responsibilities overseeing 40,000 employees generating over $17 billion in revenue. She is passionate about diversity and STEM education. In my podcast interview earlier this year with Barbara, I learned that she is a CEO, a mom, a grandmother, and a constant optimist. She believes in fostering a growth mindset by leading in a way that's not prescriptive, but instead empowers people. In today's presentation, Barbara will talk about the pivotal moment that changed her perspective on leadership. Please give a warm, SWE welcome to Barbara Humpton.
Oh, it's so great to see everybody. Thank you, Rachel. Good morning, SWE. Oh, and what a thrill to be at WE21, and I love Indianapolis. The last time I was here, I got to kiss the bricks at the raceway. It was just so much fun. And I'm pleased to be with so many friends and family. This morning I had a chance to be with Nelia and Whitney and Jessica, who came backstage to have a little bit of a conversation. And I know we have extended family here. Sophie Hatchett, if you're in the room, I was thrilled when your dad called and said that you'd be coming to Indianapolis to take part in this. This is our family. And you heard Rachel describe Siemens. Let me take a moment and just put this in perspective. Think about this last decade. The last decade was about using technology to create what I'll call the Internet of People. Think about how technology has transformed everything in our private lives, from the way we communicate with one another to the way we shop. Now, this decade is the decade when people will connect things. And we at Siemens are working on the Internet of really big things: buildings, trains, factories. It's a fascinating, fascinating role for us to be playing, and it brings us to the core of who we are. We're a focused technology company that creates technology that transforms the everyday for everyone. You may not know about Siemens. I didn't a decade ago when I was invited to join. And when I had the opportunity to learn, what I saw was a company that had built its business strategy around global megatrends: climate change, urbanization, the ever-increasing global supply chain, the longer lifespans of people all around the world, and the digitalization of everything. And so now, to have the opportunity to bring technology to address these massive challenges is a true privilege. But today is about you. And today is about us. It's about the change that we'll be making in the world. And I want to talk to you about driving change. And I want to talk to you through 3 stories. First, I want to take you back to my beginning. When I was a youngin', I grew up in Lexington, Virginia, and I was raised by 2 college professors. Both my parents were math professors. And you'll hear on the podcast I did with Rachel a little bit about what it was like to grow up in a household like that. I loved it. Summers off, where we went camping as a family, introduction to all of the wonders of the world through 2 universities in our hometown. And so when I went off to school, I thought I wanted to be a math professor like my parents. I studied math, loved the theoretical math, but in my senior year, IBM came calling and offered me an opportunity to come and learn to be a programmer. This is back in the day when computer programming was still just being invented. And I went to IBM a little wide-eyed, wondering what this experience would be like. I was a year or so into my career when one day the project I was working on, the chief engineer called us into a conference room. Now, I can't tell you what the project was because it was classified, but let me just say it helped bring down the wall. It helped end the Cold War. It was important. And I'd been thinking of it in the abstract. Yes, we had engineers who led the computer programmers to build the software that was doing incredible things. But the day the chief engineer called us into the conference room and told us that our technology had been used to help save a young pilot. The pilot had been flying over enemy territory and had been shot down and was not able to find an exit. And our technology had been used to first locate him and then help extract him. That, as if that wasn't enough, the next thing the chief engineer said floored me. He said, "I want to thank you because that was my nephew." And that's when it hit me. It just hit me like a ton of bricks. That technology has purpose. Technology touches lives. Technology makes possible things that would have been unimaginable without it. And I was hooked. I told my parents that, you know what, I'm probably not going back to graduate school. And since then, I've been working, I'll say I got a graduate degree in the School of Hard Knocks from working in technology programs as fascinating as the Global Positioning System, biometrics for the FBI, doing cargo screening for Customs and Border Protection, things that really matter. And here I find myself at Siemens. And people often ask me, what does Siemens do? And when I begin to describe it, they say, whoa, 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 that's a lot. Yes, Siemens is providing technologies that affect nearly every aspect of our lives. I recently went to a conference where we invited customers to come and talk about how they're using our software. And the people who took the stage ranged from the president of Huntington Ingalls, where they're talking about using our software to build submarines, to Estee Lauder, who uses our software, that same software package, in order to plan their cosmetics. But here we have the rovers. Think about going to Mars. Think about the technology that's required. We've come a long way from the slide rule, the pencil and paper that I used when I started my career, to now a world where NASA and JPL were able to simulate the Mars rover. They were able to simulate its landing. They were able to look at variations in parameters to be confident that when that rover landed, it would be successful. It's this technology now that is at our fingertips. What we're doing today is working to create technology that will give normal people access to the tools that will help them invent the future. It used to take an army of engineers to do this kind of work. And today, a high school student in Huntsville, Alabama, can use our design tools in order to envision a new prosthetic leg for a veteran who wants to be able to compete in sports again. This is the power of technology. So my first message to you all today is find your purpose. What is your why? And then use the skills you have in order to apply that technology, your own talents, with purpose, and be aligned in accomplishing something great beyond what you had ever imagined. Now, people talk to me a lot about, hey, what's it like to be a CEO? In fact, one of the questions people often ask me is, you don't look like a CEO. And I ask people, well, how should a CEO look? You know, we're living in a time when everybody is questioning everything. And I had stepped into my role as CEO of Siemens USA in 2018. Having a ball, getting to travel the world, meet people, tell the Siemens story on fantastic stages like this, and then the world stopped. In February of 29, I had been to the Munich Security Conference. I'd had 3 trips to New York City, and somewhere along the way, I picked up a virus. And I was laid flat in bed. I couldn't get up, literally could not get up. My husband and I were supposed to take vacation in Jamaica. He went. I was home, laid up in bed. And in that time, I don't know whether it was COVID, and maybe I'll never know because by now I've had the vaccine and those antibodies they're just with me, who knows how I got them. When I woke up from my haze and realized, man, you know, the world has moved on and things are changing, I thought to myself, ooh, I've got to get in touch with my team and find out what do we have to do in order to basically get this company prepared to deal with coronavirus. And you know what I found? I found a team that had sprung into action. Yes, I was laid up, they knew that, and they weren't going to bother me. But the head of human resources formed a tiger team. We brought in the head of environmental health and safety. We got legal involved to find out what are the implications, what can we do to accommodate people who are going to have to deal with the illness. And we brought in the heads of the businesses to say, think about your workforce and what we need to be doing right now in order to get you ready to perform. Everything was humming. And you know, at times of disruption, people want to step up. And here's the great lesson that I learned about leadership. People want to do more. So again, another question people often ask me is, wow, 40,000 people, 17 billion in revenue. How do you do it all? And the answer is, I have to do very little in my job. For the most part, everything that I can give away is a gift to the people in my organization. One of those dark days in the midst of the early planning for COVID, I put in a call to my CFO, Marcia Smith. She works in New York City. I'm in Washington, D.C. Our head of human resources in New Jersey. We are a virtual team. We always were. And I called Marcia just to say, how is it going? What are you hearing? And she said, Barb, I just don't know what it's going to be like. I'm a little bit afraid. And she said, I just want to be useful. These are the magic words. And what I'd ask of all of you, as you take your purpose, find your why, and begin to work with teams on the things that really matter, look around you and realize that the people around you want to do more. What does it feel like to be empowered? What does it feel like to be trusted? What does it feel like to belong in an organization and to know that when you contribute, you're making a huge contribution to the team? We did a word cloud on this. This week we had the Global Siemens Business Conference. Once a year, top 500 people in the company getting together from China and India and all over the world. And our management asked us just this question. What does empowerment feel like? And you know my favorite word on the word cloud? Joy. You can bring joy to people as you work with them by giving them the privilege of picking up more and doing more with you. Now, these lessons from leadership, you know, it's funny. It's when you've worked for almost 40 years, you've picked up a story or two. And it really is probably the best way for us to share our lessons. And the third story I want to share with you, I'm going to say takes a little bit of vulnerability, but I'm going to do this one. You see, this last story is about the worst day of my career. I worked at Lockheed Martin for 27 years. I loved it. Like I told you, I started at IBM, but then IBM sold its federal business, and I ended up ultimately being part of Lockheed Martin, but still part of the same organization. I understood that you had Stephanie here yesterday, and I'm imagining she was fabulous, a fantastic colleague, and truly a role model for all of us. Back in the day when I was still part of the Lockheed Martin organization, I was called to my boss's office. And I was anticipating a little bit because somebody had stopped me in the hall a few days earlier and said, "Barb, we had a big meeting and we were talking about you." I thought, ooh, I wonder what this could be. And my boss's boss said to me, "Barbara, we have studied all of the jobs across Lockheed Martin, and what we're looking for is the hardest jobs in the corporation because we see those as the proving ground for future CEOs. And we've determined that you are currently in one of those jobs. And so we'd like you to step aside so that we can put a member of our top talent pool into the job. You're welcome to stay and be her deputy if you like. Or if you'd prefer to do something else, just let us know what it is. And we'll be happy to work with you to try to make those arrangements." I was stunned. What do you say to something like that? I said, "I understand. Let me give this some thought." Now, I call this the worst day of my career and the best day of my career. Because I went home that day and I said to my husband, imagine our lives 10 years from now. And I want you to fill in the blank. I'm so glad we ... And together we brainstormed, what are the things we would love to be doing at this stage of our lives? And what my husband said was international travel. Well, we have been travelers ever since we first got married, and we've now been to all 7 continents together. It's been just such a joy. But we have never had an international assignment in business. And so I went back to work the next day and said, if I can't do this job that I love so much, I would love to take an international assignment. And the company was really responsive. They said, absolutely. How about, we just won a major job in Australia, and you could be the project manager for that job. This would be a great assignment. And so they put me on a plane, and I went down to check it out. Fantastic team, gorgeous country, terrific mission, so fantastic. But in the ensuing weeks, suddenly my father-in-law died. And my mother-in-law said, Barb, I know you're considering this international assignment, but Dave can't go. I need him. I need him here. And I thought to myself, what will I do now? I actually considered going to Australia as a bachelor and taking an assignment for a couple of years on my own in a little lonely apartment in Canberra. And then ultimately decided that can't be the answer. Someone I was working with at the time said, hey, there's this new thing called LinkedIn. Why don't you put up your resume and see what happens? And I don't know how many of you all remember back in the day, there was a financial organization that had an advertisement where a big green arrow went out in front of people. They just said, follow the big green arrow. That's the way life unfolded for me in that moment. What happened next was I was invited to join Booz Allen Hamilton, which I loved, While I was at Booz Allen Hamilton, I got a phone call that said, how would you like to join the Siemens Corporation? And like I say, I went to the library, looked up Siemens, because I didn't know, and realized that, yes, this was going to be wonderful. And it turned out that, yes, that position that I had held at Lockheed Martin really was a great training ground for a CEO. Now I'll share with you, you might ask, well, how come it wasn't Lockheed Martin? Well, I joined the company in the 1980s, IBM in the 1980s, and I came up through those years when women, I think, really had to stop and ask themselves, am I as tough as the boys? And along the way, the feedback I got constantly was, wow, Barb, you smile a lot. Wow, Barb, you're really nice. I was told that I was too nice to be an executive. Funny, fast forward now to Siemens. I had the chance to lead our work with Siemens Government Technologies, pursuing work with my lifelong customer, the US federal government, and introducing them to everything in the Siemens portfolio. And what does the federal government buy that Siemens makes? Well, it turns out they're the largest landlord in the world. They're the largest energy user. You just name any category, and the US federal government is a leader there. Through my federal government years with Siemens, I got to know every corner of the Siemens Corporation. And I was following the footsteps of Judy Marks, now CEO of Otis Corporation, who had invited me to come to Siemens. She had become the CEO of Siemens US, and I was CEO of Siemens Government Technologies. When Judy was invited to go to Otis, I went to the global CEO and I said, Joe, we're all going to miss Judy, but I'm here and I'm ready. And he looked at me. This was it would have been this week, I don't know how many years ago, 4 years ago. And he looked at me and he said, oh, Barb, thank you so much, but we're not going to fill the job. So I was a little embarrassed, but a little taken aback. What, no US CEO? We have someone who's going to do it on a part-time basis. Part-time basis? But my reaction was, great, how can I help make the US successful? And he said, do this, do that. Well, I'll tell you, 4 months later, the call came of, hey, Barb, would you be interested in interviewing for the job that we've now decided to fill? I said, absolutely. When I met with Joe, here's what he said. He said, Barb, I've been talking to a lot of people about you, and they all have nice things to say, and that's not usual at Siemens. So what I'm here to tell you, this is when you find your purpose, and when you figure out how to build teams and drive things toward the future, just know that you can be your authentic self, and it's enough. These are special times. These are times of disruption. And if there's one thing I've learned, and I urge you, if you haven't already, tune in to my conversation with Rachel on the podcast, because she drew out these critical themes. It's times of disruption that give us the greatest opportunity to shape the future. Think about what happens during times of change. For just a moment, everything ungels. There was always a way we always do things, but in that moment, everybody questions, is this the right way to do things? This is the moment to seize. This is the moment when you can look to your left, look to your right, say, what's changing? And then look for opportunities to bend the arc in the direction you want to pursue, so that when things gel again, it's going to be aligned with the direction we should be setting out on. And so here's my mission right now. We need a world that is more sustainable. We need a world that is more equitable. We need a world that's more resilient. And I know that technology will play a huge part in helping build that world. I hope you will join me in shaping that future. Thank you very much. Megan back while we bring Rachel back up on the stage.
Thank you, Barbara. What a great way to view leadership.
I think I surprised you by ending a little bit early.
You did, yeah.
And I know, as a mom, how critical those moments are when you're sitting down with your feet up.
Well, we worked it out backstage. We're all good. So thank you so much for a great presentation. And again, what a great way to view leadership. I have to believe that many here in the audience have been inspired by your story.
I hope we have some great questions.
I think we do. I have the first one already ready.
Shall we go sit?
We'll go sit. So the first question we have from the audience is, what is one skill or characteristic you believe has helped you excel in your career and helped you gain your leadership role?
Ooh, yes, what one skill? If I were going to point to one thing, believe it or not, it would be curiosity. And if you gave me two, I'd say curiosity and initiative. I honestly believe that those are the two differentiating skills we all need. It's what gives us the ability to continue to learn throughout our lives. And anyone who has a fixed mindset, right, that, hey, I learned what I needed to know when I was in college, and now this is what I'm carrying forward, you're gonna find yourselves a little lost in a world that is changing so fast. We feel like we can't keep up. And I'll just share that right now, I'm meeting a lot of fellow CEOs who are spending time talking about, oh, I want people back in the office, and ooh, I wish that we could go back to. And what I keep saying is at Siemens, we're not going back, we're going forward, and we're leaning into the flexibility and all of the change that technology is bringing us.
I think that's great, and I think as you heard from the clapping in response to that, there's a lot of people who really resonate with the moving forward, not just going back to what we've always known.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Our next question, you mentioned so many big projects you were involved with, all which are very impressive. How do you stay motivated and excited when the projects aren't as glamorous?
Well, let's see. What projects aren't glamorous? Was it Shakespeare who said there are no small parts, only small players?
I think so.
So think about whatever role you have and realize that it is part of a bigger system. If you can apply systems thinking to your own current position, what you'll quickly see is, some call it the butterfly effect. Right? I need to do this in order for that to be successful, in order for us to accomplish the broader thing. And so, I'll be clear. I used to actually say this to myself when I was in roles. This is the most important job in the corporation right now. What I am doing is the most important job that needs to be done. Now, I had a manager who actually taught me some really fun things and I'll call it some hacks for how to get in the right mindset. One is, have you ever worked on a project where it's hard and you want to sort of make some expeditious decisions? Let me just get this behind me and move on to the next thing. Peggy Burns, who was my fabulous leader when I worked on the global positioning system, one day said, you have to do each job as if you're the Queen of England. I was like, what does that mean? And she said, well, imagine every decision you make, you will have to live with for the rest of your life. I mean, that gives you a perspective. And so what I've been doing is coaching folks who are coming up in my organizations to actually think about this, and then to think about the value of even a tough position. I mean, what's more valuable than taking on a hard job, potentially screwing things up, cleaning it up, and then seeing it be successful at the end? You learn more through these experiences than you do from standing on a stage accepting trophies.
That concept of failing forward and failing fast, I think.
Learning through doing, exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
By the way, just one moment, Rachel.
Yep.
I don't use the F word. Failure?
That's good advice. How do you manage your work life and your life as a mother?
Oh, we talked about this a little bit in the podcast. For those who aren't thinking this way, let me just share a perspective. The work-life blend. We always used to talk about work-life balance, and balance implies that somehow you manage to get it perfect, right? There's some equilibrium, and I always pictured myself on a tightrope, and whoa, which way am I falling any given day? And for me, it turned out to be a self-defeating kind of frame of mind. And so when we started to get the tools, first of all, when I got out of classified programs and could actually take work home, being able to have a digital device that kept me in touch started to give me the first taste of flexibility. Oh, having a laptop where I could load things up, take them home, and work on things in the evening after the kids had had a bath, that was great. And so look at what we've just done over the last year. I'm absolutely encouraging work-life blend, and I'm really encouraging people to recognize their limits. I mean, all of us need to have that time of day where we say, day is done. We close things up. We reconnect with family or whoever's in our bubble with us, and we spend a little bit of time just letting go of the pressures of whatever our job is. I'm finding that it's this kind of practice, I'll just call it a practice, that is healthy over the long run. And in my case, I've been so fortunate to have a husband who wants to be part of the work we do. He wants to be engaged in raising the children and the grandchildren. And all along the way, and I don't, you'll be dealing with this. I was just talking to Megan Rathburn, who's with me here, who's a new mom herself. And just that realization that motherhood changes everything, that the idea that actually it can make you better. And that if you love your work and if you feel joy from your work, it can make you a better mom. And so I think the blend is the way to go. Now, I taught my daughter one other thing. And she, just last week, told me this has actually really helped her as she has had her third child, something I never experienced. And she said, Mom, a couple years ago, you told me about changing your mindset to, I get to, instead of I have to. And for those of you who are doing this, it works. I mean, I get on the treadmill and I say, I only get to work out for 30 minutes on this treadmill. And then you see the minutes ticking, oh, it's only 25 minutes. And it's a different frame of mind. And she's got that going now when she's got her little 1-year-old, really pulling at her leg, she says, I only get to, have Caroline at this age once.
I'll have to remember that as I say, okay, I get to share the space in my rib cage with my daughter. How do you stay true to a positive and friendly personality without coming across as passive and non-assertive?
Well, I actually think mid-career, I really do think mid-career, when I was getting all that feedback about I was too nice, I really think people were misreading me. I am nice, I am friendly, but I get stuff done. And so the further I got into my career, and we were actually, the teams I engaged with, we were getting a lot of great things done. People started to catch on that this is good. I actually had an employee in that time frame who came to me one day and said, "Barbara, you seem so nice, but you're actually tough as nails." So I'm going to tell you, I was raised in Virginia I was raised to be a lady, and there are certain things that just don't suit me. It would be inauthentic for me to be someone throwing out cuss words all the time. Now, I work with women who can cuss like a sailor, and everybody laughs and they know, "Oh, Bree, she's just fantastic, isn't she wonderful?" If I walked into a room and started talking that way, people would just, they'd be shocked and step back. So I guess, what I'll tell you is it works for me. Now, an optimistic outlook. I actually think an optimistic outlook can be learned. And for those who doubt it, what I'd encourage you to do is go to my Optimistic Outlook podcast. You like the way I work that plug in?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Go to my Optimistic Outlook podcast and look for the episode with Maggie Smith. Not Maggie Smith from Harry Potter, Maggie, or Downton Abbey. Maggie Smith, a poet from Pennsylvania, who wrote a book of poetry. It's actually a book of tweets that she gathered, and it's called Keep Moving. And Maggie was not a natural optimist, but she built an optimistic outlook through daily practice. And what does it look like for me? Megan and I were talking last night about the fact that I've been doing a lot of press interviews. Earlier this week, I was out at the Milken Global Conference, and I had the privilege of being on 4 different news outlets through the morning. And you always wonder, is somebody going to throw that tough question? And as we were thinking about it last night, I realized there are no tough questions. There are only questions. And for every tough question, there's a real issue behind it. And it's the asking of the question that gives us the opportunity to talk about potential solutions. Man, Rachel, I'll just tell you, once you start getting into this state of mind that says, I've got a perspective on the world, I have things to share, I have something that other people need to know, it takes away all your fears and inhibitions. Now, I think engineers are often natural skeptics, and that's good too, right? Because what that does is it makes us question, why do things work? Is that real? Could it work in the future? What's going to happen if? I love the whole exercise of looking at a situation, a potential problem, and looking at it from all angles. How are we going to solve it? Break it into pieces? No, make it bigger. We can solve a bigger problem. All of those things are wonderful practices and aspects. In my case, a bubbly personality is just the way it all gets packaged.
I think it's key. The key there is being authentic to yourself.
That's
right. So, yes.
Thank you.
As a female, have you dealt with a lot of backlash as a CEO or in your positions before that job? And do you find that people take you less seriously? And if so, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think this is one of those double-edged swords. Have I had backlash situations? I do have one other story I often tell about someone who was assigned to be my mentor, early career. I'd gotten married, I had 2 young children, and I was so thrilled to be selected to be part of a small circle of talents, to have a mentor assigned to me. In my very first meeting with my mentor, he sat me down and said, as a woman, you're going to have to choose between being an executive and being a mother. And I thought to myself, first of all, did nobody brief him? I already have 2 children. So there were those moments. And what I'll tell you is that we had that interchange, and then years later, I ran into him again. And I'd had a lot of time to think about our interaction in those early days, my own standing in the world and what I wanted to achieve. So in my next interaction with him, when he became patronizing, I actually stopped him. And I said, can I just pause for a moment and let you know something? Years ago, we had this interaction, and you told me something that, basically this was the end of the path for me. And I felt intimidated. And since then, I have become an executive. And just now, in what you're saying to me, I feel myself being tossed back into that frame of mind of a decade and a half ago. I don't think you're trying to discourage women, but I want to let you know how I feel when you say things like this. He was shocked. And he said, I didn't intend to offend you. And he thanked me. And we've been friends ever since. So what I would say to women in the audience who are wondering how to deal with situations where you feel you're being belittled or put down, have a moment of grace. Let people know privately how they're coming across, because no one today wants to intimidate the people around them. Talent is just too scarce. They want you to be successful. Coach them and tell them how they can be most effective.
I think it's critical because it's unlikely that some people may have heard that feedback before. So referencing yesterday's keynote about the importance of feedback, I think that's an important message. You say people want to do more, which is true, and that people need purpose. But what do we do when we can't do more? How do you deal with burnout?
Oh, yeah, burnout. I mean, we've all heard the phrase, when cabin pressure drops, put on your own mask before assisting others, right? You have to take care of yourself, or you will not be able to do the things that you need to do with and for others. Be kind to yourself. Now, what does that look like when it comes to, say, a job where more and more keeps piling on? One question is, do you have colleagues? Do you have colleagues who understand when you're overloaded and that they can come to your assistance and help? Do you have a manager who understands that maybe you're carrying the biggest load and could use some support? Now, I'm going to tell you something maybe a little odd. I said earlier, we're going to flexible work. We're doing more than that. We are focused on an empowerment culture, and we're shifting our mindset from number of hours worked to outcomes. And it's taking people a little bit of time to make that shift. You know, those managers who say, hey, I see the people in front of me, and I need to have my people in front of me to know that they're working. I hear talks all the time about, oh, do you know that there are bots now that can make it look like your mouse is moving so that people will think you're actually paying attention when you're actually, out playing tennis with your friends? Good grief. When we're working on projects together and we understand what the outcomes are, we can communicate openly about how much is being done and how much it takes to get it done. And I say it's important for you to speak up and let people know about your own workload. It's important for you to have an open conversation with the taskmasters in your life about how you're feeling. I think this moment is one that is going to bring us into this new era where empathy becomes a killer feature, the killer app for leadership. Because, think about it, we're in the midst of the Great Resignation. People can write their own tickets. They can go anywhere. Do they want to work for you? Well, your employment value proposition has to be so compelling, and people have to feel so energized and engaged that they're really convinced to stay. That's the kind of culture we're trying to drive at Siemens. And if you find yourself in a position where you're burned out, then say so. Because one of the things we're trying to do is change the Great Resignation into the Great Reassignment. Right, Nelia? If you are just tired of doing what you're doing, could you actually get involved in another part of the business, and would that recharge your batteries? There are so many things to do in our corporation that you can do this. But if you find yourself in a role that doesn't make you jump out of bed in the morning, or doesn't make you stand up and cheer when the team accomplishes something great, then maybe you're not in the right place. And I hate to say that, but give that some deep thought, because I hate calling my job work. This is the joy of my life.
I really love that, the joy of your life. And there was a saying, right, if you really love your work, you'll never work a day in your life.
That's right.
So it's exactly that. So one of the things you mentioned during your talk was that you had visited all 7 continents.
Yes.
Can you tell us about Antarctica?
Antarctica. When we went to Antarctica, it was 2013. And it was, when we came home, I actually said to my husband, I don't think I need to ever go anywhere else. Well, I was wrong, but in the moment, that's how I felt. It was astonishingly beautiful, and it's difficult to get there. The only way to get there is through, I'm just going to say, an expensive sort of chartered experience. I mean, the year I went, there were people who got on a Russian icebreaker and they got stuck in the ice. That's not the experience I had. So my husband and I went to Buenos Aires, and then we flew to Ushuaia, the lowest city in the world, southernmost city in the world, and then we got on a boat that crossed the Drake Passage for 2 days. We're on seas that are just like this, and then you come out into the Antarctic peninsula, and it's like, imagine if you flooded the Alps and could just cruise through the mountaintops. That's what Antarctica is like. It was absolutely gorgeous, quieter than any place I've ever been. We were living in this white bubble. Every day, it's the middle of the summer there, and the temperature would get to be about 32 degrees. And when we were actually able to step onto land, one of the first places we went was a penguin rookery. And we were allowed to stand a certain distance away and watch as penguins hatched. It was unbelievable. The only trip we've ever made where there was not some kind of souvenir concession stand at every stop. And it was heaven.
Hopefully you took a lot of photos.
We did.
I imagine those
yes.
memories are amazing. One of our audience questions, they've been told that pursuing a degree in engineering is ambitious for a woman. How do you respond to comments like that?
I have ambition. I want to tell you one other story. And I don't know if any of you have experienced anything like this. Again, I got some of the best mentoring of my life in those early days at Lockheed Martin. My boss at one point called me in, and we were having a development planning session. What would you like to do over the next 5 years? And we were talking about it. And my boss sort of looked at me and he said, you know what? You're what's wrong with the United States these days. I said, what? He said, 20 years ago, you would have become a math teacher, and you would have been educating the young men who would then come into industry and support families. Now, I was raised to be a lady, and in those days, I had no idea what to say. But I'll tell you, when Time magazine published an article about me in my CEO role, and they told the story of they told these 2 stories, the one about you can't be a mother and an executive. They told the story about, you should have been a math teacher. He wrote to me and he said, I hope I wasn't the one who told you you couldn't be a mother and an executive. I said, no, you weren't. You were the one. and again, a moment of grace for someone who needed to be coached. So.
Well, it looks like we're almost out of time for our Q&A session. Barbara, thank you so much. I do have one last question that I would like to ask you. It was something we talked about on the podcast. And the question that I asked during that, and I think it's really valuable information for everyone to hear, is what would be your one piece of advice for a young engineer?
To be a young engineer again. To you young engineers, raise your hand. So a lot of us wait to be called on, right? Raise your hand and ask to be included in the toughest, the most important. Go to where the problem is the hardest, where things are the most difficult, and make a difference. You will change the world.
Thank you, Barbara. I think you could do a whole presentation on just that idea, that concept of raising your hand and what impact it can have on your life and your career. When I opened this morning's session, I mentioned a special presentation. To accomplish this, I need a couple of people to join me on stage. So we'll thank you very much, and once again.
Thank you, Rachel. What a privilege. Thank you all.
So for our special presentation, please welcome SWE's CEO and Executive Director, Karen Horting, and the Mayor of Indianapolis, Joe Hogsett, to the stage.
Well, good morning. I'm only going to be a moment, but I'm here to officially welcome you to the city of Indianapolis. Karen, if you'll permit me, I'll go off script just for a moment. First, I would not be the mayor of Indianapolis if I did not begin by saying, while you are here, enjoy yourself, stay safe, and spend lots of money. Let me remain off script for a second. I am so pleased to have the Society of Women Engineers here in our city of Indianapolis. We are so proud to be able to host this year's convention safely and in person. Secondly, I would also be remiss if I didn't shout out Jessica McCormick. Now, many of you probably know Jessica. She's been attending these conventions for many years. She is an instructor and a counselor here in Indianapolis, teaching engineering. And she has helped coordinate the convention this year. But what I really want to emphasize is, not only is she an engineer and an engineering instructor and counselor and advisor, she also is a member of the Indianapolis-Marion County City-County Council. So she is a leader in local government. And frankly, we need more women engineers leading local units of government. She does a wonderful job. And lastly, and then I'll get to the proclamation, I was delighted earlier this week, actually Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, to take my 16-year-old daughter on her very first college visit. So we went to a university, remain unnamed because she hasn't selected where she wants to go yet. But we went for 2 days. I think she had a delightful time. I know her dad did. And because she's wicked smart in science and mathematics, she made it clear to the people at this university she wants to be an engineer. So I'm sorry, I'm a dad, and I'm proud of my daughter, and I just had to shout her out too. So for over 7 decades, the Society of Women Engineers has created opportunities for women in engineering and its industry and empowered young women and girls to pursue careers in STEM. Those efforts have helped shape the future for countless individuals and helped change the landscape of engineering for the better. That's why we are proud here in Indianapolis to host the Society of Women Engineers Conference, gathering thousands of brilliant minds in a community that encourages excellence. From the women spearheading innovation here in Indianapolis at companies like Eli Lilly or Rolls-Royce. Yeah, shout out Rolls-Royce. They just won a large B-52 contract, so congratulations to Rolls-Royce. And by the way, congratulations to Indianapolis. From the leaders in engineering today to the next generation coming up at our local universities, Indianapolis has a clear interest in supporting an environment where gender parity and equality within engineering and technology is not the exception, but the standard. And to those of you visiting from out of town, well, we'd love to have you join our community as we work toward that future. So I'll see if we can get some job offers on the table this week while you're here. And with that being said, let me finally present this proclamation from the city of Indianapolis. And I do want to thank Karen for putting up with me for this time. But I will be brief in the proclamation reading. Women engineers make crucial contributions in every area of engineering, including civil, chemical, mechanical, computer science engineering. And as I learned this week, artificial intelligence, right? Cybersecurity, all the new areas that are being pursued. Women made up only 17% of engineers in 2021, and only 30% of women who earned bachelor's degrees in engineering are still working in the field 20 years later. Approximately a third of women who have left the profession cite organizational climate as the reason, indicating a clear need for improved conditions for women in the field. The Society of Women Engineers is an international nonprofit organization established in 1950 that advocates for change for women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, with over 40,000 members across the globe. The organization creates educational programming, provides scholarships, and recognizes individuals with awards to celebrate the importance of women in engineering. This year, the Society of Women Engineers gathers in Indianapolis for your annual conference with the theme, Aspire to Inspire, which is a reminder of the importance of encouraging the next generation of women engineers, yes, including my own daughter, to follow in your footsteps. The conference focuses on empowering women to achieve their full potential as engineers and as leaders, not only in the field of engineering, but also on the city county councils across our country. So today, the city of Indianapolis joins the Society of Women Engineers in recognizing the colossal impact of women in the field of engineering and supports efforts to create a world where gender parity and equality in engineering and technology is the standard. So now, therefore, I, Indy Mayor Joe, better known, I guess, as Joe Hogsett, do hereby proudly proclaim October 22nd, 2021 as the Society of Women Engineers Day in the city of Indianapolis. Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, we are so honored to be part of history, to have the society recognized in this way. We appreciate your kind remarks, and I know that your daughter will be welcomed into our ranks once she selects that university. I'm going to make a guess in my mind at what that unnamed university here in Indiana might be. But we will welcome her and nurture her. But thank you for your welcome, and thank you to Indianapolis for letting us do this conference in a way that we felt was safe for our members and our partners, and for this great recognition. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rachel to close us out.
Congratulations, Karen.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
What an honor to be a part of SWE history. Everyone here in this audience and online, you are part of that history. As Mayor Hogsett said, from this day forward, October 22nd will be known as the Society of Women Engineers Day. This is such a great validation of the work of SWE's mission, and that it's being noticed and acknowledged. So, woo! I want to thank everyone for being a part of today. Before we leave, I have a few reminders. This year's closing remarks will be here at 3 p.m. Indianapolis time, Eastern time in the United States. Tomorrow, we'll hear from Patty Poppy, the CEO of PG&E, or Pacific Gas and Electric. By the way, Patty is a graduate of both Purdue and Stanford, so let's make sure both universities are well represented tomorrow. In addition to the educational sessions today, please make sure that you also take time to attend all of our networking events, the inspirational insight sessions, and the career fair, if that's of interest. And most importantly, be a person who inspires others. Aspire to inspire. Thank you all for attending. Have a great second day of conference.